The Swerve! Another calling card of Mr. Russo. And I don't want to knock on all swerves, because when used well and when executed well, a swerve can be very valuable. But when they're used in excess, and when they're done for no reason other than to shock people, then they're pointless and they just hurt the storyline and they hurt the show as a whole. A perfect example, and this is not a Russo one, but a recent example, the draft episode of Raw. They switched Cena over to SmackDown, and then they switched him back to Raw at the end of the show just to trick us and shock us, basically. Well, yeah, you swerved us and you tricked us, whatever, but all you did was negate your story and make that entire episode pointless. So what was the point? It amounted to nothing. Basically just canceled your own story out. And you see it a lot in movies. Like M. Night Shyamalan is the perfect example to go with. Like The Village. The twist at the end shocked me, but it didn't make it good. If anything, the twist kind of ruined the movie more than anything else. And you see that a lot with a lot of Russo storylines, where a guy will turn heel for no reason other than to shock us, or a guy will randomly win the title out of nowhere just to shock us. And it does get annoying after a while, especially. I think somebody told me that there have been 50 heel and face turns since Hogan and Bischoff came to TNA, and that's way too many. I thought it was more than that, to be perfectly honest. And WWE, they do it all the time as well. What with got guys like Jack Swagger, Dolph Ziggler, and Sheamus winning the titles out of nowhere just to shock us, and it doesn't work. If a swerve is going to work, it has to be the plan. When Hogan turned heel in '96, that was their plan, that was their direction, they mapped it out. And it worked. When Rock turned heel in '98, this was one of Russo's actually, it was well thought out, well planned, and it was shocking. You can shock us, you can surprise us, but it has to be the plan to go in this storyline direction. You can't just randomly go, oh, let's do this, because it'll shock people. Because eventually the stories become confusing, they become convoluted. Your stories lose meaning, and ultimately people are not going to care about what you're doing, and that is a major problem. Especially nowadays, since we're out of the Monday Night Wars period, and there's no reason to really go out of your way to try and shock us over and over and over again, because it's okay to slow down now. There's no head-to-head competition anymore. But, yeah, again, swerves, one of those things, when used sparingly and when executed well, can be very valuable, but far too often, it's used way, 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 way too much, and used very poorly, and it only hurts the show. Oh, god damn it, I gotta talk about these again, don't I? Backstage segments where the wrestlers basically act as if there's no camera there on them. And I talked about it in my first video. You can check it out right there. These segments just don't make any sense, no matter how you look at them. And I understand that they're done for exposition purposes, storyline exposition. But there's got to be a better way to do it. When you have a bunch of characters, the wrestlers, they're fully aware they're on television. They acknowledge that they're on television when they're out in the arena. The commentators can see what goes on backstage. The live crowd can see what goes on backstage. But for some reason, the wrestlers, when they get backstage, are completely oblivious to there being a camera there. They're completely oblivious to the fact that they're on a television show, which doesn't carry over from week to week. I remember when Lay Cool and Dolph Ziggler and Maria were doing this little thing on SmackDown. It was stupid. Where Lay Cool was trying to make it look like Maria was being cheated on by Dolph, and we saw their whole master plan unfold in front of a camera in backstage segments, and it's like, alright, why doesn't Maria just watch last week's episode to see what's going on? Like, she doesn't watch the show? None of her friends watched the show and told her what was going on? And again, I understand wrestling is a very complicated form of entertainment because it combines so many different factors. But these segments are just awful. They are just so fucking bad. in so many ways. It doesn't help that in the WWE they script everything word for word and expect the wrestlers to actually act and perform these things, and they come off so wooden and stiff and like they're reading off of a script, which they're not trained to do, by the way. These segments are just awful. Again, they're done for exposition purposes, and the WWE, I think they do it, it's like, hey, look, we're not just athletics or whatever, we're entertainment, and we do storylines like this or whatever, but it just comes off so poorly nowadays, and they've gotten worse. I can't stand watching them. It really drags the show down when they're featured heavily, and again, there has got to be a better way to give exposition to your stories than just doing these crappy segments over and over again. Oh, yay, another formatting problem. But, let me preface this by saying that I'm not one of those guys that says, oh, the show only had 15 minutes of actual wrestling. Bullshit. Fuck that show. It was awful. Because I think there are ways to get around not having a lot of wrestling action on your show, and it is possible to make a good episode without necessarily just filling it with action from start to finish. But whatever you do, whether it's more promo-oriented or wrestling-oriented or a well-balanced mix of both, I do believe that the time has to be spent well. There isn't a whole lot of television time in a 2-hour show. When you take commercials into account, there's only about 84 minutes, so less than an hour and a half. So yeah, a lot of care needs to be put in how you spend your television time. And every single episode of Raw, every single episode of Impact, a lot of episodes of SmackDown as well, although they do it less frequently, features a segment on the show. It's a long promo segment, usually at the beginning, sometimes at the middle, where the sole purpose of the segment is to make the main event for that night's show. If it's a contenders match, you'll probably see 5 guys come out and interrupt each other saying, I want a title shot, and then they'll go, oh, hey, you'll all get a chance to get a title shot. Or you'll see 2 guys arguing, and then it's like, well, this will be our main event for tonight, this match. And to me, it really is a waste of television time to do that, because A, the process of matchmaking is not compelling television. I don't care what WWE and TNA think. I don't know why they think that it's compelling television, but it's not. And second, look, all you're doing is setting up the main event for that night's show. Shouldn't it already be set up? I mean, if you want to give off the impression that this is a real sporting event, don't you want me to think that, like, some planning actually went into making the show and you aren't just making it up on the fly? Because so many times while watching these shows, it's like, oh, well, these 2 people had a fight, let's put them in a match tonight. It's like, wow, they're really, like, booking the show as they go? It's like, well, thank God all those fights took place and all those promo interruptions took place, or else they'd have no matches for the show. They'd have nothing to do. And it's really very simple how you do it. At the start of the show, you have the announcers run down the card. Here are the matches you'll see tonight. Boom, 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 boom. There you go. And if it's a major main event or something, it's either a title match that should have been built up over at least a few weeks anyway, a semi-grudge match that'll play off of what happened the week before, or it's a contenders match that doesn't require much of a story anyway. So why dedicate 20, 30 minutes, which is like a third of the show, basically, again, when you take commercials into account, why spend all that time building up a match that should already be announced? And again, I've talked about this before, when the segment plays out, especially if it's for a contenders match, and you see people pile into the ring and just interrupt each other over and over and over again, you know where the segment's going to go. You know it's going to wind up with most, if not all of them, getting put into a contenders match to decide the new number 1 contender. It's the same story being told over and over and over again, every single episode. Watch Impact and Raw especially. You will see this segment on every single episode. And I just think that the TV time, limited as it is, could be spent on other things, building other stories, maybe a match if you want to do that. There's just better ways to spend the TV time than simply announcing a match, or basically taking 20 to 30 minutes to announce a match that's going to happen on that same show. I don't see the point. I am so sick of the face versus face match build-ups where the promos used to build it up are basically just an ass-kissing fest. It's like, oh yeah, you're great, and I respect you. Oh, well, you're great too, and I respect you too. Let's have an honorable fight. Look, nobody wants to see that. Well, I mean, again, it's one of those things that if used sparingly, it would probably be okay, but I see it so frequently now between babyface matches. Shawn Michaels did it a lot, and it just gets annoying and so boring. I don't want to see a fight between two people that like each other. I want to see a fight between two people that are at each other's throats and want to rip each other's heads off. Even in real sports, when there's that element of hatred, like I remember when T.O. left the Philadelphia Eagles and ended up in the Dallas Cowboys, and sure enough, the first time those two teams played each other the next season, it was can't miss. Because it had that interesting combustible element of Terrell Owens involved and the whole story attached to it. It's just more interesting when there's hatred involved. And you can do that with two baby faces. Rock and Austin, the build-up to 17, watch the last segment on SmackDown, the go-home show before WrestleMania 17. They were ready to kill each other, and it was awesome. Hogan and Warrior, they were in each other's faces all the time. They didn't talk about how much they respected each other. They talked about how one was going to conquer the world, the other was going to cause the plane to go in a nosedive, and all that other wild shit. It was awesome. I'm just so sick of the ass kissing and the constant respect over and over and over again. I want to see conflict between two characters that hate each other. And a perfect example of how it worked was when Hogan and Michaels had their match at SummerSlam. Hogan, and Shawn has said this on this DVD, Hogan wanted it to be classical heel versus face. He didn't want it to be face versus face, I respect you, and all that crap. And I'm sure Hogan wanted it that way because he wanted to ensure that he'd be cheered over Michaels. But it worked so much better that Shawn was a dick. It made the storyline so much more interesting that Shawn was like this asshole that was out to just destroy Hulk Hogan, and he was going back to his more DX97 ways. It was so much more fun to watch that than it would have been to see Hogan and Shawn stand in the ring, have a semi-antagonistic stare down, but not really. And they talk about how I'm going to win, no, I'm going to win, but I still respect you regardless of who wins, blah, blah. Bull crap. I mean, you two fucking hate each other. Let's just make it that way. It's so much more interesting. It's so much more fun when the two characters hate each other. And I'm sick of all the respect crap. It's just obnoxious. WWE did it recently with Rock and Cena. Rock and Cena are at each other's throats. The segment was amazing before WrestleMania. Rock screws Cena at WrestleMania, and then the next night, Cena's like, "Hey, yo, Rock, I'm cool with what you did at WrestleMania, because if you didn't do it, it would have ended in a draw, and that's not fun at all. Hey, why don't you and me have a match? May the best man win." And all that crap, it went down that same road of that, oh, I respect you too, blah, 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 all that crap. And come on, no, let them hate each other. It's so much more fun when they hate each other. It was more fun when they hated each other, as the week before indicated. They haven't done the handshake yet, which is good, but yeah, bring the hatred back to wrestling. It's so much more fun. Oh my God in heaven, please stop this. I can't tell you how sick of this I am. The evil authority figure. Now, when Vince McMahon started doing it in '98, and when Bischoff was doing it for a while in WCW, it was fine because it was revolutionary. It was a new concept. Wow, an evil boss is trying to screw the top baby faces? That's never been done before. It's interesting, it's exciting, it's revolutionary, new. Unfortunately, since then, it's become it's almost like the companies feel like they have to have it for some reason. Like, we had to live through Eric Bischoff again. We've got Hogan and Bischoff right now in TNA. We had to live through Vicky Guerrero multiple times. And I guess you could count the Raw GM since he screws faces over a lot. Michael Cole is essentially the GM since he's sort of like the mouth of Sauron, speaking for the lead authority figure. But that whole evil authority figure thing is just so played out and so boring. And it's really the genesis of a lot of the other cliches that I've talked about. Back in the Attitude Era, you would see those promo segments setting up main events later in the show, but that was because Vince McMahon was trying to screw people, so he was trying to throw things at them on the fly. It never fully went away. And I'm sure I could think of various other examples as well, but it's just boring. I don't care anymore. Bring managers back. Bring male managers back if you want to have like a heel non-wrestling character. There's really no need, especially in this day and age after it's been done to fucking death. I don't want to ever see Vince McMahon on TV ever again. He's a character that I have really gotten bored with over the last few years. I wish he had left in '99 and that would have been like the last we ever saw of him. If you want to have an authority figure, let's go back to the Jack Tunney days, where he would only show up when it was time to settle a controversial matter or some major decision needed to be made. Like, I really would not mind if we never saw the authority figures on TV, except in situations like that. Let the show be about the wrestlers now. The evil authority figure thing is played out. It's dead. I don't care anymore. And let's move on to something new.